if you're engaging your team to do the things like 9 to 5 all the time, they do not have the space to think anything different. They are just following the routine. So create that space, even for yourself, where you are working upon something which is like more creative, where more innovative, very different. So if you are not creating that space for yourself and your team, you're really lacking on the best talent. You have it over here and they have in their brains. First is that. And second, to your point of meeting, so what change that I have done in my team is like, we had a time where everything was like COVID driven, no coming to office, a lot of meetings. During that time, I worked a lot on the psychological safety and not a lot of meetings. So we talked about how COVID is giving a positive result to us. What is the positivity of the situation? So that kept a lot of positivity in the team, and people were coming to help each other, kind of a thing. So that was the time not for the innovation. That was the time to stay safe and together.
How do you get 10,000 people to take a step to the left? What's behind the relentless mindset of a world champion? Why do teams of exceptional talent fail? How do you manage the pressure to perform? These are just some of the curious questions we will attempt to answer as we bring you world leaders, curious minds, exceptional talent, successful CEOs, and incredible human beings who know how to inspire great leaders and are inspiring great leaders themselves. I am Craig Johns, high performance leadership expert, international speaker, and CEO of Speakers Institute Corporate and World Sport Coach. This is the Inspiring Great Leaders podcast, where the ordinary don't belong. Welcome to the Inspiring Great Leaders podcast. Our guest today is a strategy and transformation leader and former global head of IT strategy, and is a TEDx speaker. Her education includes a Bachelor of Commerce and has studied at the Indian Institute of Management, Bangalore. Our guest has worked with large multinational companies such as a global security tech company, G&D, American Express, Agilent Technologies, and Trident Group. Currently, she is the Chief Operating Officer at Dream Big Australia and is mentor of STEM students through IMINS. I have the privilege of introducing a dynamic and purpose-driven leader who lives by her mantra, everyone is an expert of something. It's a leader's job to find that something and bring it to the front. Anita Madan. Anita, welcome to the show.
Hey, thank you so much for having me here. I'm quite excited for the talk. Thank you.
Yeah, you're currently living in Australia, but where did you grow up? Well, where did you live and what was the big dream?
Yeah, so I grew up in India. So I come from, I always say, a traditional modern family. So they were both actually. So like my grandfather, he was in army and my dad was in doctor. So they were quite modern and they wanted more women to grow. And then they were quite supportive of me to dream big and pursue my dreams. As well as my mother and grandmother were quite traditional. So they wanted me to follow a certain path and all that. So yeah, it had been quite a journey, an interesting one.
And so you're talking about your mum and your grandmother, getting you to follow a certain path. What was that? And is this something that you have stuck with, or have you kind of, I suppose, shifted away from that and followed more of your dad and your granddad's dream?
Yeah, no, that's actually a good point. So it's like, so you follow your natural instincts. So I could have followed like a traditional way and stayed in the limits of this thinking what I was being told, follow the rules, do step-by-step things. But I think as a natural instinct, I was kind of a dynamic person. So I naturally felt more for the instructions from my grandfather and dad, where they inspired me. And I had some resistance from my mother and grandmother to think like out of the box, but that really shaped me better, I would say. So you need to have both. So I think I took both in a very positive sense. And from the beginning, from the school, I was holding a mic, going for the debate competitions, and like all those things. I was quite an extrovert person.
Beautiful. I love that. So you went into university and you were studying a bachelor's of commerce. So when you first went to university, what was the desire around commerce? Was it just you felt like you needed that to go and step into leadership roles, or was there another decision around why you
Yes,
decided it?
yeah. So I never dreamt of becoming like global head of IT strategy or CEO. So that was never my dream. I dreamt of like becoming a lecturer and somebody who can actually have a lot of research and share the values. So that was my dream. And only path I thought was, okay, it's through lecturer thing. So I was doing my master's and all. And there was one organization, Trident Group, they came for interviews. My dad told me, just give it a try. I thought, okay, I'll give it a try. And it went through 4 and 5 rounds. From thousands of people, they selected only 13. He told me you got selected as only 13. I was, oh my God, something just happened. Really need to be like seriously thinking if this is my path or lecturership. I talked to my lecturer. I said, okay, this is what I got, and they're the highest paid masters, and the profile is good. But I never thought of going to the corporate sector. What do you say? He said, okay, why don't you give it a try for 1 year? If you like it, you like it. And if you do not like it, you can always come back. And now it's been 24 years, I'm still liking it.
Wonderful, wonderful. And so, what were the thing? Obviously stepping into corporate world at a young age, out of university. What were the biggest lessons you learnt that maybe you can share with people that might be listening that are about to graduate or and are looking to that step into corporate world?
Yeah. So a thing that I've learned and really helped me was like when you are into some job, so do not try to prove yourself as the best candidate. Just give your best because there is difference between the two. When you want to prove yourself to be like the best, you are really fearful of getting failures. You do not take risk. You have like lesser scope of risk because you want to look best, and that's what we have learned in our universities and academics. So take off that shield and take the path where it says you give your best. When you give your best, you want to try new things, you want to expand your horizons. And when you do that, it automatically shows as an excellence in your performance. So take a different route, I would say.
Take a different route. It's wonderful. So recently, you've just come back from America. You were speaking on the TEDx stage on the Red Dot around modern leadership. Where do you think, what was the catalyst to really wanting to speak around modern leadership, and where do you think it's going?
Yeah, so yeah, that's one is like of course TEDx was really a right platform to share the things that I wanted to share with the larger audience, and it was about the modern leadership. It came through the aspect like I had been into a lot of mentorship and a lot of public speaking and keynote with young leaders. I saw a kind of a hesitation between the young leaders. So to become a strong leaders, they're growing more into SME roles. So somebody is AI expert, some is legal expert. But getting into leadership, when I ask them, so they think, okay, they do not know everything. They're the expert of one thing, but things are changing. There are so many different things. How can they lead when they do not know completely? And second thing was like when I was going into a board of director kind of lunches and dinners, I saw a lot of discussion around the topic where the leaders are also facing is like things are changing so fast. We cannot have hold on everything. Cybersecurity laws, climate change requirements, AI and everything. How do we lead the innovation? How we support our organizations to grow the innovative areas when they do not themselves know that. So of course that was my topic I took is like what is a modern leader? According to modern me, the modern leader is not someone who knows everything, but is the one who knows how to navigate through unknown. And that became my topic. So where I got like invitation from TEDx US. So I in that I have shared leader cannot know everything and what are ways to navigate through unknown.
Oh, congratulations. A great topic. I think people love certainty. They love comfort. And it's quite easy for people to stay in that space. I've always found the best leaders, though, like to step out and they show certainty during uncertainty. They're able to show certainty for people. They are able to step into that uncomfortable zone to help other people feel comfortable. But that ability to, really, for people to kind of navigate, where it's unknown, whether there's uncertainty, etc., can be real challenging. And this whole, it can be a little bit confusing as a leader. They, as you say, they think they need to know everything, and they're bombarded all the time. And you need to be this type of leader. You need to know this stuff. And the best leaders are able to, in the uncomfortable zone, bring comfort by drawing out the best expertise from everyone else. So how can people navigate the unknown more effectively as leaders than what they've done before?
Yeah, so of course, so you can hear more from the TEDx talks that will be coming globally released in September this year. But at the same time, so on a very high level, so it talks about like how you can leverage the power of your peer group, how you can actually provoke your own team to discover solutions. And it also talks about like how you take your organizational goal as a North Star. So it talks about all those things because these things remain universal, irrespective of the time, era, and kind of a profile. So these are the three pillars to really, really like leverage to grow as a leader of today.
Great leaders obviously will hire people that are more experienced than them, have greater knowledge, expertise. But quite often they'll bring them in, but they're not really leverage and utilize that knowledge effectively. If we step down off the macro and come into a bit more of the micro, how can leaders put things into practice where they're actually drawing out the expertise from people around them? What sort of things could they do on a day-to-day basis?
Yeah. So I think the first step goes with like, of course, being more secure about your things and hiring the experts, because not everyone can hire an expert. Sometimes there are insecurities that take place. So first of all, take that off. When you have experts in your team, so it's like, I always say, Peter Drucker said, leader of the past was the person who knew how to tell. Leader of the future is the person who knows how to ask. So our job is now changed. So we are managing the knowledge of workers, right? So we cannot tell them what to do, but we have to give them an environment where they can think differently, where they can challenge themselves, where they should have the space to stretch themselves with the ideas. First is create that environment. If you say to your team that, okay, do whatever you want to, you are the expert, it doesn't help. We have to create an environment where they can think out of the box first. Second is like our role as a leader is to give them the direction, because when they're thinking loud, they're thinking in all directions. But we have to find the right side which fits to the organizational goal. So there comes our role to ask them the right questions. Why did you think so? What happens if we do not do that? What happens if we do that? Did you consider that? So ask those questions. When you ask those good questions, that sparks a lot of rational thinking in the expert to think beyond his expertise, but including other areas like finance and all, as well as it helps you to put the right decision in the direction of the organization, because that's our role, not to give the solution, but to spur the innovation in the team and then give direction to those innovation, which makes sense, which does not make sense. So I think that's the way we can navigate better.
We have to spark innovation within our team by asking those right questions. With the COVID coming in, we saw a lot of changes in the way meetings are delivered. We've seen shortening up of meetings. We've seen an attempt to try and reduce the number of meetings. I'm not sure if that's happening in all organizations yet, but we're looking to shrink them. Now, the more we shrink meetings, the less time we can potentially have to ask more questions and to really go deeper. So how can we, you're talking about asking questions to people to uncover or look at it from different perspectives. Is there any way that you have looked at in regards to meetings and how we might be able to restructure the way we do meetings to draw out more from our team and give that space to allow it to happen?
Yeah. So I think there are two aspects. One is meeting and giving the space. So first was like, if you're engaging your team to do the things like 9 to 5 all the time, they do not have the space to think anything different. They are just following the routine. So create that space, even for yourself, where you are working upon something which is like more creative, where more innovative, very different. So if you are not creating that space for yourself and your team, you're really lacking on the best talent. You have it over here and they have in their brains. First is that. And second, to your point of meeting. So what change that I have done in my team is like, we had a time where everything was like COVID driven, no coming to office, a lot of meetings. During that time, I worked a lot on the psychological safety and not a lot of meetings. So we talked about how COVID is giving a positive result to us. What is the positivity of the situation? So that kept a lot of positivity in team and people were coming to help each other kind of a thing. So that was the time not for the innovation. That was the time to stay safe and together. So, and that thing you can harness after the COVID was gone. So now the COVID is gone. So I hear from the organization, they have a mandate to come to office twice a week or thrice a week. So we have a different setup. So where we ask the team to come to office, but with a purpose. Like when you are starting a kind of project, if somebody is joining, when it is a time that you all want to meet and talk to each other. Because I experienced myself when I started coming like one day and the whole team was also coming and I was all the time wearing the headphones and I realized what's the purpose of me coming to the office. So then we realized we will do like half Wednesday as like a no show meetings. So nobody will put a meeting in that calendar and we communicate it to everyone. And that is the time anybody can walk my desk, I can walk on their desk, or we go out for coffee or something. Because that is the time that you ask those questions. You have that informal but a structured talks, not on the phone, right? So it's just not following the syllabus. It's really living by it. So living by it, like you need to have that environment. You need to have kind of a ambience around you, like where you sit and you talk, you discuss, and you're not questioning them. You're discussing that. So that happens more in person. So this is combination of so many things. And I think these things worked out so well. Like we ultimately started in my team a department we call continuous service improvement, where we had first year 74 ideas. So I think it worked out well.
74 new ideas. So of those new ideas, how many would have then gone into practice?
Yeah, that's really a good question because yes, the first year was the idea to tell people, okay, you are free to give the ideas. So we had a lot many. And the second time we had shortlisting of 2 levels and ultimately we had 13. So 13 is easy. So they know the idea and they will put in practice. But how about the others who did not go through? So all about the main story goes with the ones which got rejected. So we have to be careful with them when we say, okay, it did not go through. So you have to be really clear why it did not go through, what could have worked. Maybe sometimes the idea is good, but we do not have capacity to take up that financially, or we have a different term. So because when you talk to these 2P ideas which did not go through, actually motivates them to think more rationally for second year. So, of course, concentrate on 13, but do not forget the ones that did not go through.
Yeah, I think the importance of always aligning to things like strategy or performance outcomes and things like that. It makes it a lot easier to get across the line when there's lots of ideas being thrown around. the pressures and expectations on leaders seem to have grown a lot. And people, I gather, seem to be searching for a lot around how can, what's the newest way to lead, etc. But the fundamentals of leading haven't changed, have they?
Yeah. So that goes a lot with your personality. It's like whatever we were reading in our year 2 syllabus cannot go when we are in year 5 or when we are in year 10 of our studies. So we also eventually have to grow. Things are changing. So the speed of change has definitely increased from past. Earlier, it used to take us like years and years to move from one way to the other. Now it takes us months. So the speed has definitely changed, but things were always changing. But though the speed has changed, our access to so many things have also increased multifold than earlier. So it a lot goes into your personality. How do you see the change? So if you have to fight with the change, so that means you're putting a lot of energy towards against the wall kind of thing. So, and it does not mean that you have to adapt every change at the same time. So as a leader, what goes well is you have to find the right signals where it makes sense to adapt it and where it makes sense to ignore it. So if everyone is doing agile, maybe agile makes a best way for your company, but maybe it's a waterfall, it still makes best sense for you. So really, as what makes you apart from other leaders is getting those signals and taking what are the ignorances and what are the adaptions. I think that's a crucial way.
With pressures and expectations as well, do leaders need to kind of look at, not only do they need to disseminate the decision making and look at utilizing the expertise of other people around them rather than trying to think they need to know everything, but do we need to approach leadership in a different way that ensures that we manage our energy really well?
Sorry, what's the last sentence today?
To manage your energy really well and the energy of your team.
Yeah, so exactly. So there are 2-3 aspects to it. So first is like there are people when they grow to the second role, they know how to give their first role to the person who is their successor, who has taken up the succession, but often fail to take things which they have to take when they have taken the new role. So if you've taken the new role, if you are overly engaged in something that you were earlier doing, is not just finding your position. But at the same time, if you are not looking at the things you were earlier doing, but are also not adapting the things that you were supposed to do, is also not the right thing. So it has to be a mindful kind of a decision all the time. For example, many people ask me, what is your favorite style of leadership? Autocratic or kind of coaching or diplomatic? Actually, it really depends. If I have somebody in my team who is really new, probably I'll hold his hand for some time till the time he's able to do it himself. But at the same time, where I have an expert, I would not get into routine, but I would have a mechanism of like having the right KPIs where I can get an indication where they need me. So it really depends. So I would say, yeah, the role of leader is quite like a limited space of time. Do not stretch your time because you can think that it is flexible, but it burns you out. So think I just have that window. Think of the things that you need to give away to somebody who's succeeding you. Think of the things that you have to take with your position, as well as like about managing where people need you more and where they do not need you. Do not have one rule applying. Okay, I'm this kind of a leader. Okay, you would be, but that leadership is about like what it is required from your team. Yeah. So it's always like the juggling. So you should know what is the second ball that you should catch, and you should not let it drop because that's your style kind of thing.
We're seeing more female leaders, a diversity of genders in our leadership across the globe happening more and more, which is fantastic, and we absolutely love that. You've worked a lot with mentoring women in different roles. How do you feel we're progressing in regards to gender diversity in the leadership roles, and potentially what can be done to continue to improve that?
Yeah. So for any big change to happen in the world, first is like be aware why it is required. And second is the stage when it happens. That's like again a quite of influx stage. And third is okay, so continuing with it. I strongly believe we are at the first stage where we have all the numbers which say 16% in STEM or maybe 5% at the C-suite level. So we have all those numbers. We have a lot of talks going around. Even I participate where we say, okay, we need women leadership, why we need it, what's the importance of diversity. So we are clearly at the stage where we are becoming aware. So this is like a propaganda stage. So next stage is like when we implement. When I say implement, we should be able to see a lot of role models for 13-year goal to, okay, I want to be like this because this female X is like doing so well. I want to follow her, kind of a thing. If you think of somebody, it comes equally for male and female image kind of thing. So that would be the implementation. So that would happen next. But yet, certainly, there's a lot which is being done by our male allies as well as females who are at the position they can influence. So there's a lot of positive kind of thing that is happening in this direction. Definitely, I talk to a lot of males like who are at good influential position. They want to contribute, but of course, they do not know how to do that. So I always say that it's not that the boys hate us, but that's a way of like showing respect. Yeah. So we have to tell them, okay, what we want. So I think we are at that stage. We just not need a lot of females to tell like what's the life being a leader as a woman. We also want to tell males, okay, so being a female leader, so these are the few challenges we find and how can you help us? Because they really want to help us. I am myself is a product of 3 good mentors, all male mentors. So who have really developed me to take up this path. So
Yeah.
It's a co-creation of kind of a future.
I like that approach. We're seeing more and more data, and obviously you've worked in some IT firms along the way and dealing at global level and leadership levels in this space. We're getting more and more data. You were talking about before that a leader doesn't need to know everything, but with more data can overcomplicate things sometimes too, if not utilized well. And so the more data doesn't mean more effective. I mean, it's about understanding what's the best data to use. For people thinking about leadership in the future or currently our leaders, you're dealing with a lot of data and technology change, maybe less humans in some organizations. If we've got less humans and we've got more data, then how do we effectively, from a leadership perspective, be able to utilize that well?
Yeah, so data helps humans to take decisions effectively. I would put it like that. Data does not replace humans. So that is one thing. So I might have tons of data. So that can say, okay, sales are going up. So in US, so sales are going even higher in Africa. But we really need human to find out, okay, so what's the part of reference? So data or science would never replace humans because humans have got a kind of a brain that operates in like so many different ways. It's a combination of science and arts. We do not see that science and arts combination in a computer, but definitely all these advancements and data helps us to take a better informed decisions. So what our role as a leader is not to threaten the humans in our organization. So, okay, your work can be done by computer. So it's something we want to tell them as like, okay, this is the work that can be taken up by a computer. You need to find something where you do a value add to it, where you bring it in a direction that is altogether a new direction. So we need to train our people and open their mindsets than to threaten them. Because new word is going to replace many things, but it would never replace the human touch. So that's where they want to discover how they can put the human touch to that machine learning. So there we want to tell them, find that, and not to tell them you're replaceable.
It'd be nice if they put their human touch back into customer service and some of the organizations that we deal with on a daily basis. But that's one of the things I think about every day. I'm like, okay, cool. We are being smarter here around the way that we work. We're using technology. We're using artificial intelligence and machine learning to do things that are, relatively mundane, things that doesn't require a human to process. To maybe understand it, we might need the humans, which I think is great. But sometimes we're focused on areas that don't really make sense, and one of those is customer service. It's it's a bit of a battle at the moment trying to figure out. Okay, yes, if we use humans, yes, they may not be able to provide all the information on time and straight away, and they may need to go to someone else. But we're also finding with technology that it's not always able to understand the question being asked or the information being shared. So we end up with people being really annoyed at the same time. Where do you think customer service is going to go in all of this? From a leader's perspective, what do we need to look at from a customer service going forward around the way we utilize that and harness the possibility of technology, but bring back more of the human elements?
Yeah, so actually you have raised a very interesting topic. So it is like that. So there are like two extremes. So first extreme as a leader is I do not support any new innovation because I do not feel comfortable. I still live up with my agenda. Okay, humans are best. So these AIs and everything are short-lived. They'll be taken away soon by another wave. So this is just a wave. Another extreme is I think of a leader, okay, so what all can be replaced by a computer? So use like Google this thing, use this chat thing, use this generative AI, use this machine learning. I replace everything. And then when I do that extreme, I'm forgetting as a human being, we want to deal with humans at many points. We need to harness the effectiveness of the science to support that better touch of humanity, right? So, but in between is the right way. The leader should know where they can replace a human work from a machine learning or any advancement in IT that takes away the monotony, the repeatedness, and something which takes a lot of time for a human to do that. So have that in the back end. Have that to indicate few things. But where we need a human touch, for example, a customer service where the customer is frustrated. So you can have like IT to tell, okay, press this one, and for this you can check the balance. But if the customer is really frustrated and he's my platinum card holder, I will not leave him with the robot. Probably I'm losing a lot of $1,000 telling a frustrated human to me, or maybe there's an emergency with somebody and he doesn't have the time and a right voice or the right word or right mental state to press the right buttons, then it is not the right thing to have computer over there. So of course we need a lot of data science, machine learning, but we should not put it at the place where we really need humans.
Yeah.
Then it is like the wrong extreme, I would say. So as a leader, we need to be really careful. We should always weigh the benefits and the challenges it would bring. It will make a lot of sense at many places, but if doing it everywhere, so somebody told me they have a kind of a computer who's their assistant. What is important, our role as a leader is to find the right balance where we need like humans and where we need computers. We need both. So we need both, but we need to find, it should not be at the wrong place. Human should not take the computer work and computer should not take the human work, right? So it's finding the right place for both.
We had an interesting one the other day. We lost our entire internet for 80 hours. Like everything disappeared. And we sent a message to try and get it resolved as fast as you can, because obviously if you're offline, you're losing business straight away. And we got a response back And it looked really good. It looked like, it was a sensible response. Look, we'll have it looked at and we'll have it back up online within 24 hours. We've got you back up. And then we follow up after 24 hours, nothing been done. And then it said, between 24 and 48 hours. So it was a similar message. And then nothing after 48 hours. And then we follow up again. It can sometimes take up to 72 hours. And then when we actually got the message, someone's looking at it, it'll be up to 72 hours. And then when we finally got the message at the end, it was the person had written it in a way, like when the actual person came on, look, we've just had a look at it. And this is 72 hours in. We've just had a look at this and we can have this restored. It'll be up and going in the next sort of few hours. And so there was a discrepancy between the human and the actual computer. So the machine learning or the artificial intelligence, the chatbot, was saying things, but then what it was actually doing is losing trust from the client who's in a situation that wants to move fast. So we've got to figure that out. We're still a long way away from getting that right. And I know sometimes the chatbots are awesome, right? They can give us great information really fast, but a lot of times we're still way off the mark. And it can just be something so subtle like that can really lose trust in your consumer.
Yeah.
So trying to get that right is not an easy task, but we'll get there.
No, that's actually right. So imagine yourself, like when we do our work, we have a computer on the table, and then we have our seat on a chair. And just think of the real world. We need like a certain place for a computer and we need certain place for ourselves. So there are certain positions that can be taken up by a computer and certain positions that can be taken up by humans only. If we put our computer on the chair and we sit on the table, so that's a kind of a disaster that will not help in working. So yeah, both are important, but both should be at the right place. So where we need computers, we should have that. Where we need humans, we should have humans.
Yeah, cool. So if we look at, inside organizations, I'm sure you've seen this happen many, many times. It's very common where someone gets really skilled up. They become a great individual contributor inside an organization. Then the next day they get tapped on the shoulder and say, by the way, tomorrow you're going to be leading a team of people. And there's no training for it. There's no preparedness for it. And they're thrown in the deep end. And then when things don't go right, the company then blames the person for not leading well, when we all know in a lot of cases they haven't been trained well. What do you feel is best practice in the way that companies should look at their people in regards to developing them as leaders?
Yeah, no, this is seen quite often, and that's really pity, because when this happens, one is like we do not have good performance, but at the same time, we also have a situation where this human being who is an expert of something really loses his confidence in things because he's not performing well. It just leads to frustration. So that's the worst we can do. So what I normally practice, and then I shared with many leaders, they also practice that, as one is like, of course, the training, but a step before is more important. So a step before is where you sit with that person, spend at least 3-4 months, observe that person, whether that person is fit to be a IC role in the IC individual contributor role, or he's fit to be a team leader. Because both kind of people are very different. They both are required. Both are really kind of gems to the organization. But if you put them the reverse order, so somebody who's good at people leadership, if always give them a kind of individual contributor role, we are not harnessing their power where they can manage larger and complex teams. So and that person can also get frustrated. At the same time, so if this happens quite often in IT. We have like experts in technology. I had those, but then they're not ready. They do not want to, and they are not best fit for people management role. If we try to do them with the best trainings in the world, it will still be a failure because they're not meant to be like that. So don't ask the fish to climb the tree. Do not ask the bird to swim. It's like that. So you should know who is the fish and who is the bird. So once you realize that, then talk to that person. I always do that with my team. I tell them, this is my observation. I think you will grow better in this path, individual contributor or a manager role. What do you think? Sometimes they think like, oh, we did not think like that. So, and why do you say that? Then we talk about it. And sometimes, most often, they come as, oh, that's right. We want to stay as you said. And sometimes they say, Anita, I'm really happy you did that. But at the same time, eventually I want to go into people management role. How can I do that?
Yeah.
So then we take small baby steps. Okay, work on the communication, work upon like socializing, work upon thinking from the larger side, small steps. And maybe in some time when they're ready, we say that, okay, now you're, I think, getting ready. Do you think you want to go into people management? Are you liking this change? Because they should like the change. They sometimes they say, yeah, it's good. So then we develop their path. And after that, the training part comes. So because we have to have the right person to take up the managerial role. Once we identify the right person, that is step one. And then it's like, how do we kind of develop them or give them the training, or maybe they are already seasoned leaders from other organization, but we want to orient them in our organizational way. So depending upon that, so training is really important because they're splurging into a new island kind of a thing. So yeah, it's important. But I think step one is very important before step two.
So from a training perspective, you can learn as much as you like on a university course or an MBA, but until you've practically applied it, it actually, it can be helpful when you go to practically apply it, but until you're right in the deep end doing it, it's really, really hard to comprehend and pick it up. Do we need to create more simulations, more immersive experiences inside organizations where we're not worried about that if we train someone, they're going to leave the organization, but that we just really deeply focus on, let's train them by giving them real life examples and allowing them to grow from there? Do you think that'll really help?
Yeah, it does help. So, as you said, we have done like MBAs, but we have forgotten. So what I've done is other way around. I have done my strategic leadership and MBA while I was in the job, so that I can actually put in practice. And then I did a lot of management degrees while I was in job, because when I thought, okay, this is time, I would understand. Similarly, so doing with good organization institutes, they create a lot of simulations. We have a lot of case studies where we talk and learn. Similarly, as you mentioned in the organizations, they could be smaller simulations we could create. So what I do is at times is like we have small team tasks where you assign one person to manage that. So that gives a kind of an experience, and you can share your feedback, what went well and what did not go well, and you can actually help them to build upon the strengths which they do not have. So give them those smaller and larger kind of opportunities where they can practice, where they can receive a feedback, and you can be more aware, like, okay, which are the areas they want to develop further. And then you can pinpoint those areas and give them a kind of a more seasoned and kind of more customized kind of a opportunity to develop further on that. So I think all the simulations does help.
Yeah. So do we need to look at maybe remuneration structures a bit differently in organizations? I think a lot of the time people are great individual contributors and they go, look, the only way that I'm actually going to earn more money than I'm going to be seen, from a significance point of view is if I step into a leadership role and maybe go to executive. Do we need to look at it in a way that it doesn't matter, like that a great individual contributor can earn as much as someone that might be a great leader as well?
Yeah. So I think it's quite, I've worked in a lot of like other countries, but I've seen so many countries have a larger gap, whereas other countries do not have that big of a gap. So, but given whether it's a small gap or a larger gap, so it makes a lot of sense if we are incentivizing people for being a manager. So that means we are discouraging a lot of subject matter experts. We definitely need people managers, but we also need the subject matter experts. So it's not a weighing scale where we put number of people are higher with the managers, so we should give them more salary, where individual contributor is a single person. It's not like that. I think the remuneration should be based upon how much value they are bringing to this role. Being a people leader or as an individual, how much value they are bringing on the table. Because it's a commercial organization. I understand that. It's not for charity, but at the same time, so people should be compensated well if their contribution is larger, even as an individual contributor. Because individual contributor does not mean that you're less, but it's you have an expertise. That's why it makes you more important that you should be there yourself with that role. Similarly, we definitely need to pay well for the managerial role. So if that kind of role is bringing a lot of value on the table, it's not because the person is taking attendance and then just being bossy does not bring in value, that or rather it does some harm, right? So I think it should be a lot of value driven. It's very difficult when you put it in practice, but with the regular practice, with a lot of HR discussions, it could be brought into like sight in the organization.
So you're the Chief Operating Officer at Dream Big Australia. Tell us a little bit about what is Dream Big Australia. That it sparks my curiosity.
Yeah, so I was really fascinated with the mission of Dream Big Australia, and that's why I associated myself. So Dream Big Australia, it's an organization where we help women and non-binary students who are pursuing science as their option in university. So we offer them programs, and these programs that make them more employable and more confident when they enter the corporate sector. We have a lot of partnerships with the organizations like Coles, Aerosonic, Energy, Queensland, and many more. They're like sponsoring all these programs, and whenever they need an employment, so they have the best lot from our cohort. So right now we have a cohort of around 350 students. So these are the ones, apart from the academics, they have been trained to settle better in the organization, because we see a lot of influx, a kind of attrition that goes in early years of career because of they do not match well. So there we play a role. We tell like, okay, our students like how to fit better in corporate, as well as we introduce these corporates, what are the demands from the students, how they want to see, so they can also prepare their undergraduate and graduate recruitment accordingly. That so we are playing a role of catalyst. I like it more because we are helping a lot of women and non-binary in this field. So that's one area that I like.
Got to get that balance right. When people are coming into an organization, it's not a one-way street. It's not the employer going, this is what we want, this is what you need to be. We do need to understand the individuals and, and in a generalized way, what is our current era of new students? What drives them? There's no point just bringing someone and saying, hey, you must fit to this piece, this part of the puzzle. We've actually got to look at it both ways. And that can be challenging too, because we kind of get caught up in our ways of this is how we've always done everything. And to step outside that boundary to try and understand a different perspective can sometimes be quite hard. So how are you combining these two perspectives of this is what we need versus this is what they want?
Yeah. So one of the things we do is we have monthly mentorship programs. So where these students have direct access to some execs and managers from our partnership organization. So they talk to each other. So that's the ground, which is quite an informal. Nobody is reporting to anyone and nobody is responsible to anyone. So that means it's a free field. I can talk my heart out. Students talk about the questions and the challenges and apprehensions they have, as well as managers and other people from these organizations try to bring clarity, as well as they also get a kind of a pulse. So what are the challenges and what are the things they are looking forward when they graduate and they come to us? So that gives them a perfect kind of ground where they are talking, because communication is the first thing. As well as when we are making our programs in our last module, so we also talk to our partner organization to ask like, what are the things they look forward in these times from the people who would be coming for employment. So that helps these students to get more employable ready kind of a thing. So do they need video? Do they need some different cover letter? All those things. These are small, small things, but make a larger difference for them to enter into the market and find the jobs. Not only with these organizations, with any organization for that matter.
Fascinating conversation here. I love this. It's really, really good. If people in organizations are sitting there and going, okay, we need to upgrade the way we think and behave into the modern way of leadership, what would be, your greatest tip for people listening?
Yeah. So in general, is like, be like child. So when I say be child like child, is be curious. Because when you are not curious, then you're thinking you know everything. When you know everything, you shut your doors to learn anything new. So when I say it's like, be curious, go to the floor and find what people are talking about. Go to like any shopping center, like what's a modern generation thinking about. Find out like, okay, this is a new technology, what it's going to do that. Have that curiosity factor in you. So don't take your eye and say that, okay, I know this, I have so many years of experience. When you kill your curiosity, you kill your growth. So have your curiosity with you all the time, being model leader.
Yeah. We all know smart people have great answers, but the most successful people ask great questions. When was the last time you did something for the first time?
Oh, so yeah, so this is like not really in the corporate sector. So this is the first time I did was like kind of learning tennis, because after every 2 years I want to learn something new. I'm not at all a sports person, so that was really going out of my comfort zone. And after that, I would not say I learned a lot, but I developed a lot of respect to the people who do a lot of sports, at least. So that made me more considerate. Yeah. So yeah, stepping out of your comfort zone is very important, and because it brings you a different perspective. So it tells you like how challenging it could be other person when you tell them to do something and they are not naturally like that. So I always do that with myself. I always have something that brings me out of my comfort zone in every second year or something when I'm ready, and that's always tough. And but that brings a lot of joy as well.
Love that. What is the one question that you would love to solve?
One question that I would like to solve. Mm, I don't know. I have so many questions. So if I have to put one, so probably I'll say that. Um, I'll say why people get judgmental. So it's like when you get judgmental, you are judging before analyzing. And I'm always like that. So probably you're right from the perspective that you have heard or experienced or seen, but it might be different from the different angles. So, but I always have this question. I see people reading the half line and then they draw the whole judgment of the personality, of the traits, of the organization. And that always brings me to the question, why somebody is so judgmental? Is it like somebody is afraid of exploring new thing, or somebody is kind of not aware that there could be different aspects, and that really tells me a kind of block mindset. Being judgmental is quite block mindset to me. It's not a growth mindset.
Never judge a book by its cover.
Yeah. Not even by the second page. Read the full.
What for you, what is an inspiring great leader, and who is a great example of this for you?
Yeah, so I have worked with a lot of great leaders, so that's coming in my kind of a discussion. So whatever I'm talking, I learned from someone. But one of the greatest leader I always find is my grandfather. So I tell that because he's the only person on the earth that I know that he was in engineering. He was a successful in army as an engineer. He did few things that got a lot of accolades. And when he retired, he pursued his studies and then he became a doctor, and he was a world famous doctor kind of a thing. And then he was supporting women at that time when nobody was talking about like how to advance even men. So I saw a kind of a leader in him all the time, the way he was putting everyone in the family together. He was getting up when he was even like at the last years of his age. Every day at that age, he could get up and dressed up in his coat and type in like a proper Britisher kind of a thing. And he would put perfume, and then he would set his day with this like newspaper. So that is again a leadership quality where you are inspiring people. When you're a self-motivator, when you are kind of a go-getter. So whenever I get stuck, so I find like how would he react? Because he was never settling down. He was always like leading in a very subtle way, that he was not kind of a dictator kind of thing. So he was a people person, but he was a natural leader where people followed him. So I think he was the greatest leader that I've lived so closely to with him all the time.
That's beautiful to speak of your grandfather like that. You've been fascinating to listen to, Anita. How can people learn more about what you do, and what is the best way for people to connect with you?
Yeah, so I love talking about the leadership values. So I enjoy being a public speaker, a keynote speaker, all those things apart from my corporate presence. Best way to find me is on the LinkedIn. So on LinkedIn, where I normally share like what I'm finding out, what I'm doing, and people can reach me out to understand more on any of the topics. That will be the best platform.
It's been an absolute pleasure speaking with you today. We will put those links in the show notes so it's easy for people to find you on. To hear about, when you were young, where you could have sort of followed the normal or what was considered normal from a female point of view in India, and kind of what life choices would be, compared to being challenged to think a bit differently from your grandfather and your dad, and the way that they valued leadership and could see the possibilities for not only you, but also many other women in this world. I love your courage and bravery to think differently, to get people to step outside the norm, to go beyond that quick judgment, to think, to take in different perspectives, to standing up on that red dot at the TEDx stage. It's a wonderful achievement. But thank you for sharing your insights in and around the modern way of leadership, the way that we can navigate the unknown more effectively, how we can handle the pressures and expectations of leadership to ensure that we can really, really make an impact and a difference, not only in our companies, but in the world. So thank you very much for exposing us to that leader cannot know everything. And I look forward to staying in touch and continuing our conversation. So thank you very much for today.
Thanks a lot for having me. I really enjoyed the complete conversation. It was a great discussion and wonderful start of the day for me. Thank you.
It's time for you to join the Inspiring Great Leaders movement by visiting craigjohns.com.au. Share this podcast on LinkedIn and be sure to hashtag Inspiring Great Leaders. We would love it if you could leave a review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. Drop us a line with your feedback and questions, and connect with us on the Craig Johns LinkedIn, Facebook and Instagram pages. Be sure to check out the next Inspiring Great Leaders podcast, where the ordinary don't belong.